Hello, everyone, and welcome to the poetry reading for the At Home with Poetry series from the Society of Creative Writing at Shepherd University. This series aims to provide a comfortable, accessible, and welcoming space for listeners to attend poetry readings. So whether this is your first time at a poetry reading or you are a lifelong listener, this is the right place for you. We want you to feel relaxed as you encounter some new poems and begin to truly feel at home with poetry. Tonight, you will be hearing from the award-winning poet Jessica Guzman, who will be reading from her book, Adelante. We are so happy to be able to continue to showcase the talented and accomplished poets for our community, even if these gatherings look a little bit different than last year. I want to thank tonight's reader for agreeing to stream her reading on YouTube. That way we can all gather virtually and enjoy her poetry while remaining safe and socially distanced. This is a time where there's a great need for the power of poetry to help us feel connected to other people. So I want to thank both our reader and our audience for gathering with us this evening. We're going to be stuck at home. It is better to be at home with poetry. We are in for such a treat. The Society for Creative Writing is very lucky and very honored to be able to have the amazing poet Jessica Guzman here, reading from her collection, Adelante, which was selected by Patricia Smith as the winner for the 2019 Gatwood Prize. Her honors include American Literary Review's 2019 Poetry Award, Harper Pallet's 2017 Milton Kessler Memorial Prize for Poetry, and the 2016 Product Poetry Prize. She's also the recipient of the scholarships from Tin House Winter Workshop, the Poetry Workshop at the Community of Writers, and the Kentucky Women Writers Conference. I have been a fan of Jessica's poetry for so many years now, and I'm so excited to be able to share her poetry with you and to get to hear her read again. So please join me in welcoming Jessica Guzman. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Sadie, for that introduction, which was lovely. And thank you to everyone else for being here, the Society of Creative Writers for inviting me at Shepherd, and also just for all of the viewers. I really love that this series is called At Home with Poetry. I love the whole concept behind it. We should all be at home with poetry all the time, but especially now. So as Sadie mentioned, I'm going to be reading poems from my book Adelante, out from Switchback Books. And I guess I'll just give a little warning. This book I wrote partially during my father being sick with cancer and then in the aftermath of his death. So some of these poems are going to be dealing with grief, with death, pretty directly. So it's a little warning. So let's get started. And I'm going to start off by reading the very first poem in the book, Florida Orange. Orange I lift to my lips. Orange I glimpse roadside. Hibiscus and bird of paradise. Florida's natural discarded below orange slip of sky. Orange jumpsuit that kindled my brother's complexion thrice. Orange visitor signs. Live where you vacation. After, no outlet. And short-term parking, turn right. At the market, 10 items or less only at the orange checkout light. At the hospital, oncology and hematology, follow the orange line. 3 weeks after chemo, I don't recognize my father in the orange cap, so I enter his room twice. Once quick to anger, he says nothing, but tugs on the lidless Tropicana straw, juice spackling the Pall Mall I never lit on the drive. Like the time years ago in a Home Depot, porcelain tile, the most perfect orange I ever saw. I never heard my father ask if I wanted a Happy Meal before our last stop to drop the last chlorine tablet in the last snowbird's pool. And when my mother asked that night, I didn't deny his broken English embarrassed me, though I didn't know why she asked, her fingers tight around the orange neck of orange pine sol, now discontinued. Orange joke on the popsicle dripping down my hand. Orange, you glad it's summer? My father rubbing his knees in our future life. Orange sun, eye level through a glass. Orange flash, orange rain. Say the devil's daughter marries days like these. Orange meal schedule, my brother turns over. Orange paper peeking from his pocket. My father in the hospital recliner, rolling oranges across the TV tray towards me. Orange slit, I split. Orange slice, I bite hard. Hold the sour under my tongue. Conservation status. The Doppler shows an apricot wave crown the bay's little mouth. My mother sorting my father's clothes. Where manatees might drop to threatened, the radio reports. Her phone won't load the weather, and won't I read her the map? In second grade science, when we charted the scabs and blisters of the zoo porpoise. See, she swears she only called because he never wore these Snoopy pajamas. Dr. Florida Wildlife says, we keep count by drawing scars. 2 apartments in 2 states in 2 years, neighboring cemeteries. Her phone won't load the weather. I'm stuck again, following a funeral procession home. The enlarged world. Against dusk, the neighbor's yard holds the afternoon rain, an apple core, the mosquito's early ascent, masked by the lisp of a too-low jet. Ants scatter from the footprint the man shaking another man's hand measures into the dirt. Even this paperback, where someone penciled me and you across a paragraph, eraser's smear. Or the memory of a car screeching, too late to miss a cat. How a cough persists after the cold. How vultures swallow bone. For the next poem I'm going to read, it's a poem in 4 sections. And if you could see it, you could see that each section kind of has its own little page. I guess I can show it to you. That's something unique that these digital readings allow us to do. In this poem, it's called Register of Futures Florida, and essentially I imagine 4 different possible futures for the state of Florida. I was born and raised in Florida, and I'm very aware, even though I don't live there anymore, I'm very aware of the ecological issues and environmental issues that they're having down there. And so this is a poem where I'm kind of imagining 4 potential futures of what might happen to the state. Register of Futures, Florida. 1. The limestone crevasse, like stale bread and phosphogypsum butter. One drawn gulp under a power plant. How the mangroves faint into her jaws, butterfly kiss the aquifer. From plains, tourists huzzah, our own moon crater, grip their polyurethane backrests to follow the fishing boats' diminishing arabesques. And the stadium seats sneaking in behind them. Fiberglass frames return the sun's glare. 2. The tide advances, signposts and bicycle spokes incarnadined. Coral usurps the chained pens of bank teller stalls, where barnacles crumb the vaults. Like meadows pursue bloom in schoolyards. Wrapped in seaweed, swings and monkey bars become truss for lost architecture. Scientists take note as their robots compass the decomposed grocery cart, screening a Tonka truck, a small moray peeking from the cab. Three. A symbol for a symbol. The concrete trees, with their carved animals and polyethylene leaves. Perennial summer vacation. The ad hoc forests and plains. The Everglades, the swamps where the croc receives Captain Hook 7 noons a week. Autocade volcanoes. Canoe rides on chlorinated seas. Where children swallow Slurpees strawless for animal safety. Four. A quake's bellyache. Then the peninsula archipelagos into blue sea. Attendant cloud rings her halo, the islands weld. Veladoras and macaroni packs unveiled behind a toppled wall. The crescent wave, afterthought. Where terrariums boast beer tin homes, continental fragments keep their sobriquet, and the old expanse splinters to cephalophore quarters. Her human cohort, unknowable in the broom. For this next poem, I'm going to speak a little Spanish. Specifically, I'm going to be reciting. The poem has phrases from the Lord's Prayer, also sometimes called the Our Father, in it. They're all in Spanish because I'm speaking as my father would have spoken, who was a native Spanish speaker. You will see that I speak Spanish with a very heavy American accent. But in case you don't speak Spanish, it's the Lord's Prayer in these sections. Coco. When my father feels the night is black, he takes a coconut and traces our bodies, passes it under our arms, conjuring wind. He says, Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo. 7 times the husk knocks the tile between my feet. My father's body sways with the water inside the shell until I can't tell where the brown of his fingers ends. Behind me, the quiet heat of little flames. My mother boiling water and puffing on a cigar. Danos hoy nuestro pan de cada día. The coconut is a fruit and a nut and a seed. My father carries it to the middle of the road. The canal water trembles from a thunder we cannot hear, though we know the smell of rain so well. His arm rises and drops. No nos dejes caer en tentación, y líbranos del mal. Copper cleaved into archipelagos by his feet. I'm going to continue thinking about childhood, I guess, by reading another poem that is set in my childhood. For this particular poem, a few things that may or may not be helpful to know. Snowbirds, I think a lot of people call them snowbirds, but in Florida, we call snowbirds pretty much anybody from up north, from Canada, from just the northern part of the United States, anybody who comes down to visit only part of the year, lives in the state only part of the year. It's kind of a way we distinguish from those of us who live there 24/7, as I did when I lived there, versus those who only come down during the winter months to kind of escape the harsher winter of the north. All right. The first Friday. After snowbirds lock their Lincolns, their condos and tidewaters shuttered, before summer storms accent the stresses of their Spanish roofs, after the lawns spit emerald and mulch, the rococo gardens trimmed an ant killer and motel blooms, exhalations of white and blue between jacuzzis and pools. In algal spume, my father hurries the telescopic pole of the skimmer, sails chlorine tablets, steady chug of the filter's deep gulps behind him. I watch, silent, afraid of what wrought iron divines. On the scaffold of tiles he set last fall, grunts from the boulders that hide subwoofers and coax arcs. And the citrus trees drop their arms, impractical fruit lining the turf. And when my father casts the silvery hoop, the net snatches lettuces, and the dragonfly's reft corpse, the drowned lizard's fake breath. Worse than wicker pressed into your back. Either you lose your footing by the pool's edge, or you spend every Friday knowing what might be caught in the mesh. The other end trembles with boundary. Water splashes his cap. Bursts of chlorine rash his hands. A shiver almost, where a gash lets in wind. And by the screen door, solitary as a jogger, I take the lee side of the lanai, my butterfly net jetting between waves, heavy with leaves and certainty. A race of attentions. How many happy meals for this much probation? How little the Barbie figurine with her abstract hair. Of course, we could go further around the block, to the work van we ride year after year, traverse these colonial roads and more. The neon principle of the 7-Eleven, where we stop for combos, pizza flavor. From here on plummeting through mirages, markets, and malls. Between us, hoses coiled and uncoiled, known only by how far our silences endure. My father and I drive the hour home, past strangers and water and light, the green smell particular to our faces, while the evening grasses come slick with the mud that tethers our boots, like so many Gothic eyes, too many for our round mouths to discern. I'm going to take a sip of water. Predictions of the material. Before the wick rejects the flame, before the glass salts the waters, or the rental en route to your funeral stalls, I worry the dog isn't getting enough sun. And it is midnight, but we step out anyway onto summer's chow tongue. Clouds extend the glare of lightning far off. Before flocks' heads drop, the dog sinks the anthill gathered, full and quick, at the Seba's trunk. Nothing swarms his leg, or the river he pisses into the heart like a god. No arthropod island, no insect bridge of grappled spurs. Before sunrise, I turn a burner high in anticipation, olive oil dollop ready to smother the pan, when a moth plummets to the blushing element, wings immediately charred. Let me tell you, more than once in a parked car, I've held the searing buckle to my chest. Before drive-throughs, before driveways, drivel down Filtrum, before the beach, crushing indistinguishable mounds and bare feet, a horse-conscious crown tearing skin, Even an Afra can't coax the future. You said, "Ay, mija, are you crying again?" Before dusk revealed the hook in the pelican's beak. I'm going to read the next poem is in a form called the ghazal. It's a very, very old Persian form, essentially typically written as couplets, and the last word of every couplet is the same word over and over again, if you're unfamiliar with it. Disney ghazal. The choices are boys bobsledding Matterhorns, or baseball-capped dads and cues locking horns. Cued across revolutions, children drop paper straws and colas from their drinking horns. Water from Brer Bear's face sprays the tourists, like blood of the bullock, a goat shaking its horns. Star-bright, nighttime spectacular, all fireworked wishes, Jiminy's reproofs fading to French horns. Bambi kneels in a pit of smaller Bambis, muzzled by the plastic molding of Maleficent's horns. Find Guzman in a gift shop of family crests, snakes entwining a basket, like a Medusa, hornless. And one more ghazal. This one is called Girls Lingering. I'm not going to rape you, the man says, solid white lines dividing his car from the bench where we wait for the 9 line. Who are we thanking and why, we ask ourselves, walking through doors held open by wind and the winks of infrared lines. At the grocery store, lipsticks pulled from our backpacks, we graffiti the eyes of cereal boxes and their sightlines. There is nothing elegant in our earnestness. When we hear jokes, we slurp our cokes hard for the punchlines. The happiest place on earth has princesses and fathers, and who could find the hand that pinches your ass in such crowded lines? We pitch blotting papers between the partitions of bathroom stalls. Let them fall onto the tiles' crooked lines. When Dorothy woke, she knew. You and you and you. We too sleep with locked windows. Our reflections deliver our lines. How my grief goes. Beneath the billow, a breeze spawns in the field. Among the mosquitoes' preamble. Attendant to tree chatter, the snap branch, catching other branches on its fall. Threading the tire swing, and the jacket, knotted at the top. Outside and inside, like a fly discovers the open window. Riffs off radio gossip. Call now if you believe in ghosts. After me, a coda. Prudent like a storm, like a child counts before the thunder. The moth's ocular bloom, wished into cocoon. Walking dream. Let the catfish fill the ditch. Let the bay frogs bellow screen our call, our promises dead-headed. Let the cockroaches eat cleft cat, and the cigarette spit that drops the O from my lips. The morphine in your drip splits you like a seed. Let the dream kudzu the pipettes and monitors and beeps. This crunch glass hatches under my feet. Whoever ended the street at the river knows hope is a line. Like from the mailbox to the door, you can almost miss the moon splayed on your legs. Tell me how you walk this figure 8, cross-cut the yard, rain without gauge, anthills overtaking the porch. Tell me every day as I pin quilts on stretched twine, as your body wishbones in electric light. Before spring we pray. My father lights candles, or he would have. Now I depend on my hands to remember. It's simple, the migrating bird's pursuit of heat, while the fly rams repeatedly into the bathroom light, falls behind the sink, where it lies until summertime. There must have been others, also waiting. All right. And then this next poem is going to be my last one for the evening. It's almost 7:30, probably will be about 7:30 once I finish reading this last poem. Once more, I just want to thank everyone for being here, for listening. Thank you to the Society for Creative Writing at Shepherd University for inviting me. Thank you so much to Sadie Shorr-Parks for inviting me and for the wonderful introduction. It's been so lovely reading for you this evening. So I'll go ahead and I will end with this poem. The Visible World. Our fathers start when the plane drops twice, 3 times against the wind, and whatever lightning elbows back. Surely someone hears the press of fingers in polyurethane, nails, snapping keychains, and charm bracelets in place. What I mean is, I found a butterfly wing and kept it. What I mean is, once the split-tongued prayer filled the air around me, the shape a single sheet makes falling over a bed. But you can't keep a breath, except in seashells and movies, the ones where you catch your father right before his heart stops. Call his name and he wakes, bleary and soft, and lifts his arms towards you. I mean, imagination matters when the rudder trips against the wind, the pulverized wing in your grip. Below you, the city's mirage of light.